From interviews to jail calls, Ditto Transcripts delivers fast, confidential, and court ready transcription for law enforcement agencies. Ditto is CJIS compliant and is already working with agencies all over the U.S., including the Washington State Patrol and the National Park Service Investigations Unit. Get started now at dittotranscripts.com. That's dittotranscripts.com. To hear details about all the applications of Ditto Transcripts and exactly why this is a key solution for your organization's workload issues, check out episode 232. You train for the threats you can see, but what about the ones you can't? United Diagnostic Services brings hospital-grade diagnostic technology directly to first responder agencies, making early detection of cardiovascular disease and cancer more accessible than ever. UDS provides comprehensive early detection programs using advanced ultrasound, CT calcium scoring, stress echoes, and innovative blood panels to identify potential health risks long before symptoms appear. It's proactive, on-site, and built specifically for those who serve. Early detection saves lives and careers. Learn more at udshealth.com. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests of this show do not represent their employing agency, department, or organization. All information should be regarded as anecdotal, contextual, and educational, and should not be misinterpreted as legal or medical advice. Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm excited to continue to reveal and share some old school knowledge, some old school lessons that we're going to analyze, or I'm going to help kind of pick through. The analysis has been done in many, many ways, many times, but my twist today brings us to these continual themes we have about personal wellness, personal agency, as well as team wellness, departmental wellness, right? So cultural, organizational wellness. And so today we're going back, not quite to ancient times like we do sometimes in the vein of philosophy, but today is going to be focused on Arthurian, basically King Arthur times, right? So medieval times. And the legend, the story, the myth that we're going to be featuring in today's conversation is that of the Fisher King. The Fisher King is wounded. And while the king is wounded and suffering, the kingdom is wounded and suffering. So he's wounded, the land is deteriorating. Rivers are trickling, crops are dying, people are hungry. The landscape becomes an absolute wasteland. So what is the core message here? There's so much more to the legend of what brings the healing, but the core message is that when the king suffers, so does the realm. And there might be some people that are quickly going to the allegory of the head honcho, right? So if the sheriff is not well, then the agency suffers. And many of you listening might have a very clear example of this that you've seen or heard about in your circles or in the span of your career. We've seen it many times as far as CEOs and companies, right? When an organization is crumbling. But I also think it applies to all of us. So as I was learning this legend in more depth through the vein of psychology and some of the myth analysis therein, I felt it really resonated with my personal life. And when we are not well, everything around us is not well. So our whole sphere of influence is not thriving. In my own personal experience, when I was not well of mind and or body, my efforts suffered. My relationships were hindered. My goals were not clear, and those that were not easily worked towards. They were not easily obtained. So this is for everyone. This is not just your top leaders, your chief sheriffs, your CEO types, your city managers, executives, not just command staff. This is the sergeants of a crew. How many times have we seen a sergeant that's not showing up well? And whether intentionally or unintentionally, it trickles down to the crew. A cynical sergeant oftentimes leads to a cynical crew. A cynical commander oftentimes leads towards cynical sergeants, a cynical division, right? So, how can we recognize this so that we can learn from it and improve our situation in the ways we can, right? Control what we can control. So, this story invites us to think about how we are all the king or queen of our sanctuary, of our circles, of our environment. You're absolutely the sovereign of your life. You're absolutely the sovereign of your career. It doesn't mean you can control every little thing, but it means that you have, I'll say, the majority vote in how your career goes. You have the majority vote in how your health goes. With the hand you get dealt, you can do a lot to affect it. You have the majority vote in how much you learn, how avid of a student of craft or discipline or profession or life itself. That is mostly up to you. It's mostly up to me, how I run my life, what I do with it. So when we go back into the specifics of career, yes, we are the majority stakeholder. We are the majority vote. We think about shareholders. Yeah, we have 51% of the shares, but we don't control everything. But a continual theme and invitation of this podcast is for us to recognize the degree of ownership we have. If you are having a tough time on your squad because of the attitudes, because of the negative narratives, because of the victim mentality that surrounds you, you have a vote in how you engage. You have a vote on how you buffer your own emotional boundaries to that. And it's a work in progress for many of us because we care, but there is an effectiveness to being able to hit that dimmer switch, right? So turn up the emotional sensitivity when we're around positive people that light us up, they fuel our resolve, and we pay back into that positive, constructive environment and energy. And there is a lot of strategy, self-preservation, and truly responsible decision making when you find healthy ways to toggle that exposure down. If someone's just constantly complaining, constantly bringing this toxic mentality, right? Everything is garbage. Everything sucks. This sucks. That sucks. Our work sucks. Our job sucks. Nobody wants us. There's nothing we can do. The department sucks. The command sucks. The community sucks. I mean, what does that do for anyone? It does absolutely nothing. It's actually worse than nothing. Nothing is kind of like this neutral. It's worse than nothing. It's catabolic. And the person that hurts the most, sadly, is that person. So how do we bring that vote? How do we bring that positivity, toggle those boundaries where we can? We got to recognize it. We got to recognize that we have an absolute role we can play responsibly, right? It's not to say that you can fix everything, but we can run our lap. We can do our thing. When we think about the king being wounded in this myth, when we think about the kingdom thus suffering, what comes to mind for me the most is morale. And I've heard it many different ways through the years. As an officer, I thought morale was the chief's role. And then as a sergeant, I thought that it was the commander's role. And as a sergeant, I also remember hearing, one of the top brass saying, morale is the sergeant's job, right? The crew of the morale is incumbent on the sergeant. And I really pushed back on that. And I think that the tricky thing, like most things that are true in life, is it's not just one thing, right? Life is not black and white. We all have a vote. And I've come to believe more and more that an individual's morale is mostly affected by them, as we stated, but that 49% overwhelming portion of it is contributed by those closest to them. So those in their circles that affect them the most, right? We are social beings. We inherit and we affect energy around each other. And so for the sergeants, I do think a huge part of that personal morale is their crew, maybe their co-sergeant, right, who they overlap with, and their direct boss, regardless of the amount of exposure that direct rapport relationship can absolutely make or break your job satisfaction. For sure it can. I would also thus say that for the officer, most of their morale might be their sergeant, their crewmates, but if they're spread out through the city, like a lot of cities are, you start your shift and then you roll out, you may be working with people from different shifts, right? Your quote unquote beat or district partners. Those people that you're going to the calls with most of the day, they are going to affect your morale. And for those of you that think, you know what, I got solid guys and gals around me, we're all pretty good dudes and dudettes, our morale isn't great, but I think it's the chief's fault. I think it's command staff's fault. My goal here is not to convince you otherwise. My goal is not to, go in this kind of one-sided debate because I'm talking and you're either listening, rolling your eyes, or shutting the thing off. But my goal is to help nudge us towards ownership because I can't change what your command staff is like. I don't think, anyway. I can't change what you and your crewmates are showing up like, but you can. Think about it this way. If you showed up and you're working a noon shift and everyone else around you had a slightly better attitude, right? You guys decided, maybe you actually put that into the atmosphere where you say, guys, we've been complaining a lot. It's really wearing me down. There's a lot that's pretty cool about this job, and I'm glad I get to do it with you fellas and fellettes. I don't know if that's ever been coined as a word, but it has now. Let's do the best we can. This job's still pretty cool. There's a lot of good stuff we can do. A lot of people that need helping, right? We're not the victims. The victims that are out there calling 911 or having 911 called on their behalf. We are here to do a job. If everyone actually, not like fake it till you make it, but actually recognize that very core truth, which is we all do have a job to do, and we do have a lot of power to do this thing that most people don't have. You don't have the gun and the badge, the side of the law. You don't have the judicial system that you get to interplay with and the criminal justice system. Most people don't get that, right? There's a lot of good people doing really good stuff out there, but when it comes to specifically public safety, criminal justice system, they don't have a seat at the table directly like that. Not everyone wants one, but a lot of people wish that they had more influence. Well, we get that, right? We can't control what happens to someone at the end of an investigation, after they get arrested, charges are filed, what have you. But we do get to do our best to build the investigation, to make the arrest. And at that point, we run our lab, right? At that point, it's up to prosecutors, judges, a jury, if it even gets there. Most of the time it doesn't, but I don't want to deviate from the conversation. So again, my point is not to sound like this brass dude that's like, guys, you don't have it that bad. Stop complaining. My real goal is to help you recognize, just like I'm trying to help myself recognize, that complaining doesn't do anything positive, right? I used to be of the vein that complaining minorly, aka venting, was helpful, right? You blow off some steam. And I feel less and less so. And there's a lot of studies on this where when you're complaining, you're bringing yourself to this low negativity focused state. And everyone you're complaining to, you're doing the same thing. And while I will still reserve some judgment to say maybe a tiny, tiny bit just to relieve the pressure of a situation can be helpful, right? Like just to say something to help you process it. You're like, yeah, man, this sucks. All right, then we're done. Like I'm saying like a few seconds, then we're done. There's nothing positive beyond that. There's nothing constructive beyond that. I'm not talking about having like a constructive discussion or debate. No, I'm just talking about just purely whining about something, which I've done many times and I will continue to do so. However, my intention is to do less and really put a cap on it because it doesn't do anyone any good. In fact, it's harmful. And that's my point. So again, complaining is contagious, but so is ownership, right? So is positivity. If you are at the point where you're like, man, I really don't see where this is going, or I'm not really with him. Yeah, it sounds fluffy. Well, think about it this way. Think about some of the people you respect the most. Think about the people you care about the most. And it doesn't even have to be at the job. right? In fact, it shouldn't be. But think about the people you love and support the most and that love and support you the most. Think about those names, those faces, and think about what it's like to be around them on a really crappy day. Is life not just a little bit better? It's probably a lot better. So we think about that, right? Think about leaders that inspire and motivate you, support you, people that you want to follow, not because of rank, not because of what's on their collars or on their shoulder patches, people that you want to follow because they're convicted, they have solid values that resonate with yours. I think about those people and then tell me that that doesn't have an effect on you. Like their attitude doesn't have an effect on you? Like, really? And then give yourself some grace, give yourself some credit because if you're thinking about these things, if you're open minded to these things, you are growth minded. You are oriented on performance. You want to do the best with what you have, and that means you are of the right stuff. That means you are cut from the right stuff, and you're putting your energy out there, and you are that to somebody else, right? So we all have a vote. Everyone in the room, everyone at roll call, everyone at briefing. The collaborative energy is what creates the morale in the room, and the morale as you start your day. That is absolutely the thing. So what's going to help us get there? An awareness, right? A self-awareness and introspection. Know where you're starting from and then know what you can do to improve it, right? So own your presence. Own the energy you bring to the room. Own the energy you bring to the conversation. There's a lot of things and little details we can get into that will help you course correct, right? If you're angry and you're about to say something, maybe hold on a beat, right? I'm a natural introvert and I was talking to my buddy Chris, a natural extrovert, and it was kind of a mind blow this past year when he said, "You know, as an extrovert, a lot of times I say something as I'm thinking of it and I'm hearing it for the first time as I'm saying it." And I'm like, "Whoa." And that was just such a foreign concept to me, right? So for you extroverts, I've asked a couple, they said, yeah, I have that a lot. And for the introverts, I think that that might be very intriguing to you if you haven't had that conversation or heard it put in those words. But this is to help develop self awareness, right? It's like writing the angry email and not sending it. So just take a beat, and that might be 5 seconds, that might be half a second. Light Touch is a non-medical wellness device designed to support calm, regulation, and more restful sleep in the midst of everyday stress. For first responders and other high-stress professionals, it offers a simple way to support steadier functioning, recovery, and overall well-being. To learn more, check out episode 317 or visit mylighttouch.com. But own that and own your voice. Be the voice that isn't corrosive, that isn't nitpicky, that isn't just pointing out all the problems. That's the easy route, guys. Like, I've been that dude. I've been that emotionally, I'll say overly emotionally invested person at every rank, every role. I've been that person that has complained. I hope I haven't been that person through the majority of any of those roles, but we all have our days, right? But I'm able to look back because I'm trying to look back and recognize that that wasn't my best. And it didn't do any favors for those around me, right? We think it feels good, right? Misery loves company, but it sets us back, right? So it's the little things like, let's not do the low hanging fruit, like, kick somebody when they're down, the easy target. Yeah, that's obvious. Okay, how do we move past the obvious and bring something actually useful to the conversation to help us run our lives better, help support each other better, help do the job better, right? That could be operationally focused, right? Let's not state the obvious. Let's go into the weeds, into the constructive. That takes work, right? That takes you putting your thinking cap on. Let's be mission focused. And I don't mean to sound cheesy or corny, but sometimes lately when I've gotten pretty frustrated about whatever thing, and it might be pretty petty, to be honest, I zoom out and I'm trying to get a better practice of this, but zoom out to like, what does my job do? Like, what is the point of my job? And I will say, as I was kind of prepping this episode, this memory came up where I actually wasn't super frustrated. with anything at the time, but I was connecting with a couple sergeants, and this is really just more of a compliment to them, where they're running their stuff super well. They're solid. They're highly proficient, and also although we're all very different, as I've stated on the show before, and my command is different than me. I do shoot for alignment, and a lot of times I think we find it, which is an effort. It's work. But I was complimenting the sergeants, but I might have sounded a little bit too sarcastic in the moment. And I was like, you guys are solid. You don't need me. What do I do anyway? Right? Paper pusher. And one of them was so quick. He was so quick just to say, no, you make a difference. And I kind of like chuckled him off. I'm like, oh yeah, you have to say that to the boss. And he met eyes and he's like, no, like you do make a difference. Like things are different working for you. And this is not a point of bragging, but it was a proud moment. And I think that if we're honest with ourselves, we all have that opportunity, right? I'm not out there doing the policing. I'm not out there taking guns off the street, but my people are. And what little things, even if it's paper pushing things, help them do that safely, help them get the training they need, then that is a role, right? That's a necessary role. So what good is it for me to disparage that? So shout out to the fellow command staff that feel like you're in danger of paper cuts more than anything, despite our younger selves, our line level selves throwing shade. Like it is a necessary job, right? We know that factually to be true. Each link of the chain is necessary, and we all have a role to play to build this team that does support and affect public safety the best we can. So mission, what is the mission? To protect people that need protecting, right? To support public safety, to make people not fearful to go to the store in their neighborhood. Because there's a lot of communities out there where people are fearful to go to the store in their neighborhood. And rightfully so, because dangerous stuff happens, right? So let's be out there. Let's serve. Let's remember why we signed up to do this thing in our younger selves, whether we were 22 or whether we were 38 or whether we were 42. The truth is still the same. We signed up with these values and these ideals, this thing we want to do. And despite the systems and the wake-up calls and the bureaucracy and the politics, we still do an important job. And I say we, right? So if you're doing more of the physical work or you're filing the cases, you're doing the cell data analysis, you're humping a beat, then just as much, if not more so. And I will still say more so. You're doing more so than I am. All right, let's regulate. So I spoke on this a little bit earlier. Let's recognize where we're at, that self-awareness, and then let's regulate. So how do you do that? Breathe, right? Oxygen feeds the brain. There's tactical breathing, box breathing, but just simply breathe, right? Just when you're uptight, when you feel that tightness in your chest, that stress, whether it's hypervigilance on the road or it's hypervigilance at the station because of energy, because of culture, let's breathe. Let's take a beat. Let's connect with people that we trust. Let's connect with people that we have strong relationships with. Let's take a walk. Let's metabolize that, right? Let's work out. Let's take the stairs. Let's park a little farther. Let's do a foot patrol, right? Let's walk around the park at dark with a buddy. Let's do some patrols. Let's get some fresh air. Let's be out in nature, right? There's ways that we can do that absolutely to regulate / down regulate. Let's write that angry email and not send it. I said this before. Don't even put the person in the address line in case you accidentally hit a hotkey or something. You fire that thing off. Just type the thing if you need to. Better yet, just write it on a piece of paper without the name. Shred it. Type it into your phone, a note, right? Auto dictate a thing in your personal phone so it's not discoverable. Offload that stuff. Metabolize that stuff. And going back to my training, the curriculum I believe so much in, the concepts I believe in, lead yourself first. We're talking about a lot. We're talking about those we work with. We're talking about our work in the community. It all starts with you. And there's a reason why it sounds cheesy. It's because it's true. And the older I get, the more I learn, the less I know, all these things. But when things sound cheesy, a lot of times it's because it's true, right? We want to refuse to believe it because it sounds idealistic, but it's true. It starts with you. You got to lead yourself first. You can't expect to lead anybody, even as a peer. I'm not even talking about official leadership or rank. I'm talking about just leading this energy of collaboration, of teamwork. How are you going to model appropriate behavior if you're not regulated? How are you going to model wellness if you're not well? How are you going to model trust if you're not clear, if you're not stable? So lead yourself first. Run your career, run your life, and then worry about everyone else. And you can do these at the same time, right? But I'm saying you got to invest in your own wherewithal, your own well-being, and your own ability to do this thing. If you don't take care of yourself, and that's your mind, body, spirit, if you're not taking intention to work out some of these things, to metabolize these things we're talking about, if you're not regulating your state, but also your schedule, also your family life, your hobbies, if you're not carving time and creating a schedule that would mirror your priorities, not the other way around, a schedule that someone looks at your schedule and then they would guess your priorities are way different than what you say you're about, then you are the wounded king. You are the wounded queen, and you are creating an environment around you that is not ripe for opportunity, that's not set up for you to pursue the goals you want, for you to live the purpose you say you want. You're not creating an environment for yourself or those around you to thrive, right? It's about mission and values. And if you're not taking care of yourself, that's just not just, health, fitness, nutrition. Those are very integral things. Sleep, but it's mental health in the way of purpose and faith and believing in your life direction. If you're not attuning to that, if you're not investing in that, if you're not doing work on that, then whether or not you get anywhere near your mission, as you say it is, as you should define it is, it's going to be a crapshoot. It's going to be absolute luck that you're counting on. And I will take the luck I can get. I've had a lot of it. Absolutely. I'm not trying to rely on it. And neither should you. Self-leadership, this thing we're talking about, this being your best to serve your life, to serve those you care about, to serve your purpose, your profession, your community. It's not a rank. It is discipline. It is simply showing up each day, each hour, each week, each month to do the best you can with what you have, right? And it's simple things. I will contribute more positively than negatively. And if I feel myself drifting towards negative, I will take a beat and abstain. I'm not going to outsource my emotions to others, right? So somebody that's got the gray cloud of doom hovering around them all the time, I'm not willing to accept that that is what I will inherit by being around them, by sharing a conversation for a few minutes. I'm not going to outsource my emotions. My emotions are my own. So if I want to carry myself a certain way, I will do so. That's ownership. That's self-agency. I'm not going to outsource it to politicians. I'm not going to outsource it to the boss, to the brass, what have you, the media. I will build the appropriate guardrails and emotional regulation to manage myself because I'm a grown adult. I have goals, I have values, and I don't want to be oversaturated by that nonsense, by that negativity. And I will use my mission and my values, write those things down, revisit them, talk about that a lot, and I will run my lap. I will set the standard for my life. I'm not going to be upset about the standards around me unnecessarily. I'm not saying don't have those conversations. I'm saying don't let it drag you down. Model, right? Set the tone, set the stage. Those that want to come along will come along. Focus your energy on them. And that's whether you're a sergeant or whether you're a line level. Focus on the people that want to get focused on. And you will uplift each other. You will set that environment. You'll set that pace. So with that, I leave you thinking about the story, the myth of King Arthur, his knights of the round, the Fisher King, right? The wounded Fisher King in the kingdom. So think about today, like today, in the next 5 minutes, the next 2 hours, like what are you going to orient yourself on to ensure that you're not that Fisher King and to ensure that your circles, your life, your environment is running dialed in just like you are. All right. With that, I leave you with your thoughts. Please stay safe, stay well, Do the things you need to do, take care of each other, check in, and stay gritty. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.